All right, how's it going, everybody? We're back. That's awesome. Glad to be back. I'm with my good friend Jonathan Bonilla. What's up, John? Or do you prefer Jonah?
What's up, dude? Doesn't matter, man. Whatever's good for you.
I've been calling you Jonah lately, so I'm gonna call you.
A lot of people, some people call me
Jonah's
John,
cool.
Jonah, Jonathan.
Yeah, like I'm saying
It's
right
up to
now,
them.
we're not up and running in the regular place where we shoot our episodes because of the whole COVID thing. So we're doing it through Zoom right now. But like I said, I mean, I test for COVID every single day, and if you're fine with coming through one of these days, we could definitely do it over there.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, in February, hopefully, we should, start opening up again.
Well, I'm not sure because right now there's a lot of discussion about, like whether or not uh, places should open up to the public as they were before because the vaccine is still barely coming out, and apparently there's some shortages of the vaccine itself. And then aside from all that, not everyone's going to have access to it in February. Maybe until like somewhere in midsummer is the general public going to be able to have access to it. And then they're still trying to figure out whether children can get it or not.
Right. Yeah. I believe LA Unified School District. I mean, their goal is September to have, all the kids vaccinated so they can, go back to the classrooms. But I don't know.
It's kind of crazy how you mentioned that because I was just talking about that yesterday with this other guest I had on. She's running for re-election as an assembly's delegate, and we were talking about that same particular issue because the teachers union doesn't want to open this year at all. They're thinking about pushing that all the way until next year, until everyone's got their vaccine, like the teachers and the kids. And then aside from that, they still want the numbers to go down first before they open up anything.
I heard about that too.
I mean, like, it's going to be about how many years is that already? How many school years is it going to be if we do push this all the way until 2022? Like 2 years, 2.5?
1.5, I think so. Yeah. Because it happened March 2020. So that half, right. And then this full one.
I've been saying
1.5.
Well, 1.5, whatever the number, it's still a long time.
Well, technically 2 school years, but lengthwise, 18 months.
That's a really fucking long time, dude.
No, I know. Sometimes it still doesn't seem real to me. No, I know.
It's kind of crazy because, I mean, when I was talking about this yesterday, the first time I read up on this whole issue that the teachers unions have, the teacher union is having with LAUSD district is the first reaction I had was, this is crazy. They got to open up the schools. The kids are going to have a lot of long-term consequences because of this. But just yesterday, Jamie, the person I was speaking to, explained to me that it's not just the teachers or the students that could become susceptible to this, but all the staff that work in a school, like the janitors, the people that work in the cafeteria, and et cetera, security. And then all the people that those people have to go home to, I mean.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. And, I do feel for the children, the kids in elementary school, because, let's be honest, their attention span's very short. They're already fighting a lot of distractions in the classroom. So can you imagine, like, at home? I don't really think they're even learning,
I mean,
between ages of 4 and 9.
What do you think we should do? I mean, if you had to make the choice, if you had to pull the trigger on one of these things, would you open sooner rather than later, or open later?
No, yeah. I mean, because this is, these are unprecedented times, but I do know because, before the pandemic, I thought by now I'd be working at a school district, being a substitute teacher. But what
I almost forgot
what a school district told me is what they're gonna do. Their goal, their plan is a hybrid system. So they're gonna slowly go back to normal, but this hybrid system, it'll be like half the classroom size, 3 days out of the week, and then they go home. They do their Zoom thing from home, and the other half of the class will come in for 2 days out of the week, and they'll just keep, switching back and forth the hybrid system. So maybe 10, 15 students in the classroom. I know for students in private schools, they're still in the classroom. They never did it from home because it's private school, 10 to 15 students. And I only know that because of my parents' friends, daughters, sons. Yeah, no, that's kind of confusing. Their three sons, they're in private school. Yeah, so they didn't really get affected by this. But yeah, obviously, the majority of the populations they attend public schools.
I mean, it's got so fucking bad that they're making failing grades or non passing grades like D's and F's into NCs, into incomplete grades.
Yeah,
And now one of the city council members of a very large district here in LA wants to make failing grades into passing grades, just so that students don't have to focus on making up those courses after the pandemic's over, which I think is kind of crazy.
I agree. Another option could be, maybe, well, obviously the parents have to put in the work too. It's not just teachers. The parents have to, for elementary students, for their elementary kids, put in the work to teach them and stuff, set up the Zoom and all that. Like I could work with elementary schools reopening because, I guess the data shows that, children are not really susceptible to COVID-19. Now for middle school and high school, they can do it from home, they already know how to use technology. So
the problem with that argument is that like I said earlier, it's not just the kids who are going to be getting the disease. It's also going to be everybody they come into contact with, that being their parents at home or their grandparents at home. And then, like I said, all the staff that have to work at these schools, like cafeteria people, the staff that work as security or that work as janitors or what have you. So it's more than just whether the kids are going to be impacted by this disease. It's also all the people that they come into contact with.
So do you think we should, remain as how the state is?
I'm glad that I'm not a politician where I have to stand on a podium and make that choice. Personally, I think we should figure out how we can get students back in school without creating an environment where there's going to be a lot of transmission. So maybe limiting the amount of students that come into a certain classroom and keeping everyone socially distanced, making everyone wear masks, the things that we're currently doing inside of offices that have to stay open or other facilities that have to stay open because they're considered essential. I think that we should prioritize and really emphasize that point inside of these classroom environments. I think that's the only real way we can figure out a middle ground between the two, to make sure that we're doing the best we can to not create an environment where COVID's going to be spreading like crazy, but also not an environment where kids can't go in and learn.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Despite what I said, just right now, I also think about, students, in middle school, high school, they're still developing in their adolescence and teenage years. They might not take this pandemic seriously. So how can we trust them to follow instructions, wear masks?
Because I've had this conversation with other friends of mine where they say, just remember how you were in high school. You think you'd give a fuck if you were passing around COVID or who you came in contact with? You wouldn't take that shit seriously, and that's a very good point. But I think that we still have to do everything we can possible. And I think at this point, most people already understand the severity. And I think it's up to everybody inside of these classrooms to check every student and be like, hey, I don't want you spraying that shit to me, or I don't want you spraying that shit to the fucking janitor lady because she's cool with me. Things like that. I think that there has to be some level of accountability within everybody that's going to be in that classroom.
That's why I remember initially when this all started, I thought, okay, universities, they can reopen because they're adults. I believe they'll follow, the students of universities will follow instructions. I don't know about K through 12. That's, man, I don't know, man. Very tough.
Well, I mean, and if you're like on the environmental side, why not make a classroom outside? I mean, I know not all schools can do that.
Right. That's interesting.
Is it within the realm of possibility to put a fucking desk outside? I mean, I don't know. I know when I was a kid, I always wanted to go outside and learn. I mean, I know it's going to be raining and shit, but I mean, you could put a canopy out there and I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be fine. Especially during the summer. If we do decide to open during the summer, there's almost going to be no rain in Southern California,
Right.
I think it's a good idea,
Man, it's tough, dude. Like, man, this just caves your head in, to process all this and to come up with solutions and then, to deal with all this. And not everyone has the same capacity mentally to handle, isolation and quarantine and being restricted from hanging out with friends, seeing people. It's tough, man. I get it. I do feel for the kids.
It's so crazy because never has there ever been a situation where, I mean, I know that everyone said what needed to be said about the pandemic already. So I feel like I'm beating up a dead horse by just talking about this subject. But you're right. I think that it's very important to emphasize all the negative mental effects this pandemic in the last year has really affected the younger groups.
I mean, it's only been, it hasn't even been a year yet, at least here in California, since, we shut down and the pandemic started. It's only been 11 months. Well, 11 months. And it's just, I never thought I'd be able to adjust to this. We would all adjust to this. But,
I think that,
we did it.
I think that everyone sort of had to adjust. And because of that, because of these adjustments, I mean, they're good for the people, but it's bad for business, especially businesses that have, movie theaters open or that or that want to get their movie theaters open, gyms that want to open up, because I have a feeling that when gyms open up, there's going to be a lot of people canceling their memberships because they already built their own at-home gyms, things like that. And I feel like people are starting to let go of the idea of wanting to go to the movie theater because movies have become so easily accessible over the last couple months to our houses. Like Disney Plus has been dropping. I know they've been dropping DC films and things like that, right? Like Wonder Woman and stuff.
Right.
I mean, that would have attracted a large crowd in movie theaters.
Personally, I'm old school. There's nothing quite like watching a movie at the theater. Personally, I'm still disappointed. The new James Bond film got pushed back 3 times. So I'm kind of losing faith about.
They're waiting.
They're waiting until the world's normal. So I guess they can make the most revenue. I don't know, but it's not the same. I can't enjoy a film at home as compared to the movie theater because they have those speakers and it's just the whole experience. But I feel for small businesses. They got destroyed, man. So many small business owners, they had to declare bankruptcy, and they've probably worked for that 10, 15 years just to establish it and maintain it. Just tragic.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, like I said, this is something that I'm pretty sure everyone has already talked about. So I feel like we're just beating up a dead horse saying what everyone has already said about it. Here's another thing about the vaccines, though. When you're reading the contract, when you want to get vaccinated, it says this vaccine prevents you from getting COVID. But as some people on other podcasts have mentioned, that's not exactly what each COVID vaccine does. Some of them do hopefully prevent you from not getting the disease, but others are just trying to slow down transmission rate, and others are just trying to so that when you get the COVID disease, you don't get it as bad. So each COVID vaccine is going to work a little different from each other, especially because they come from different companies and things of that nature. And even say a large portion of the population does get vaccinated tomorrow, we would still need to maintain the social distance protocols only because COVID can still spread even when you have the vaccine on you, because it can live in your nostrils or in your mouth. Even though you're not going to get the disease, you can still be spreading it around to people who haven't got the vaccination yet.
I'm just going to patiently wait for herd immunity. I know it's going to take time. The whole thing, it's time. The vaccine's here. It's good news, but it's going to take time, to really start combating this virus.
That's when we'll know for sure the pandemic is ending at near its closest end, and that's going to be probably within the next year or maybe 2 years, because like I said, this vaccine is not only going to be rolled out in phases that are going to take this whole year. Like phase 1 and phase 2 are going to be done from now until I believe it's July, and then thereafter it's going to be phase 3, which incorporates the general population. But you're still missing the kids. We still have to figure out that whole situation. And then, so maybe by the end of the year, we figured that out. And then in the next year, we have to see how the numbers are looking and if we have developed this herd immunity where no one can spread it because the disease just kind of went away from everyone getting the vaccine.
Right. And to add to that, let's say, we do finally defeat this virus and the pandemic ends, you know, society overcoming their fear of not wearing masks, that's going to take some time too. It's just going to feel very weird to see people outside in public without wearing masks. So
Yeah.
that's another thing to think about too.
I mean, have you been watching any movies recently that were made before the pandemic, and you just like you see someone walk into I don't know, like a shop, and they're not wearing their mask, you're like, fuck.
No, yeah. I mean, I've spent, since March 2020, yeah, just films and TV shows, and
I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody,
right. What I'm, interested on is like, when this is all over, like I wonder if people are going to talk about what they did or how they spent their quarantine, what new hobbies have developed, what skills, stuff like that. Um, just crazy. But, something, I thought before the pandemic was like, by this time I'd be working a professional job and like actually going to the gym and like learning all there's to know about that. Because at the moment I gained, 10 pounds since March 2020. And I know that's not a lot, but to become a person that's into, working out and stuff, that's a process. You got to learn how to eat and all that stuff.
I'm sure a lot of people had goals in mind you know, when we're looking into their future in recent times, but a lot of bullshit went on last year, and people couldn't get those things done for themselves. And I mean, if you talk to people who graduated in earlier years, most of them will tell you that there was also some bullshit going on during their lifetimes, like the 2008 recession. I mean, I've known people who graduated during the worst times also, and they have a similar outlook on post graduation. Not being able to find a job, or not being able to get into contact with an employer, even not being able to get that interview. It's been tough, to say the least.
No, yeah, and that's why I'm really hoping. I think everyone's done this, but I've just stuck to my inner circle. Be try to inspire them to be optimistic. Be there for them, check up on their mental health. Try to inspire them. Yeah, there's a pandemic, but sometimes problems can be an opportunity. To find success in other areas. But yeah, us college students, us college graduates, yeah, just dude. Yeah, that's why I came up with. I don't know if I came up with it or someone told me, but we're gonna be known as the class of COVID-19. And I don't know if I don't know if that's gonna stick, but dude, I don't know what we're gonna say looking back on this. Just insane.
For sure, man. It's been crazy. But anyway, I wanted to get into more recent news. You know, we have a new president in the office, and that's something that just happened a couple days ago. And I kind of wanted to get your perspective on the whole Biden presidency. I mean, what do you think looking forward we're going to expect? If you have any kind of expectations on that.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but for me personally, I think we're going to be going in the right direction. And that's nothing against, people identify with the Republican Party or conservative ideals. My issue is always, I've thought this since high school. I don't know why, people in politics and just Americans in general, I don't know why sometimes they just can't talk to each other, Like it shouldn't be a problem to, have a conversation with someone that just thinks differently from you, There shouldn't be violence or protests or arguments and screaming matches like, oh man, it makes me think about Ronald Reagan, how he was able to speak to both sides of the aisle. Of course, it was a different time. We weren't even alive during that time, so I can only look at it from an outer perspective. But now that Biden is president, I think we should be going on the right path. He got us back into the Paris Climate Accords. He's going to tackle this pandemic, in my opinion, I think much better. But I still can't believe there's a lot of Americans out there that still think it's a hoax. They don't want to wear masks. Like it's really not that hard to do,
Sure.
So
Crazy.
I don't know why they're not complying.
I mean, I think Biden's really focusing on climate. I mean, that's one of the first things he did when he got into office is he stopped the oil drilling in Texas, which, I mean, that's pretty controversial for business in that state. Or I think it was New Mexico. Or I think both. I'm not even sure. But it's kind of crazy how
Yeah, when it
he
comes to that topic, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, well, yeah, it's crazy because, I mean, sure, who doesn't want to improve the quality of our climate? One of the biggest issues that I have is air pollution, and I think that air pollution is one of the worst things affecting primarily disenfranchised communities, especially in bigger cities like Los Angeles, because a lot of semi trucks have to get to warehouses and stuff, and that's burning diesel fuel, and those emissions go into these houses that are situated next to the highways, and it's causing a lot of health problems, even if the people themselves don't realize it. A lot of people in those communities are born with asthma and later develop lung cancer, things of that nature. It's, I mean, climate change isn't just global warming or the polar bears or the turtles. I mean, I know those things are real, but more upfront, I think climate change is also affecting the local communities, and that being the disenfranchised communities through air pollution and things like that. But as far as the oil drilling, I mean, I know that's fucked up, destroying lands. And anyone that has any kind of spiritual connection to the land understands why it's bad to be fucking with the environment in that way. But also, you have to consider that I believe half of the economy in New Mexico comes from oil drilling. And if you take that away, their economy is going to plummet. And aside from all that, say you do stop drilling, what's going to happen is that these big oil companies are going to need to buy oil from abroad, and that's going to increase gas prices.
Right. Yeah, I wish I was, knowledgeable about oil and oil fracking and that stuff, but there's not so much I can say about that. But I can talk about climate change because, and I've argued with people online and in person that don't believe climate change exists.
You gotta not argue online, man. That shit'll get you.
Oh no, I know. I'm very careful with who I argue with because, I mean, you can tell. If someone's like a brick wall, you're just gonna waste your time. Right. You have to argue with people that are actually going to listen to you. But I can tell people, straight up, when I was growing up here in Southern California, it wasn't as hot. Summers, it never reached above 108. Never, ever, dude. And then, now that, during our college years, it would reach 115, 118. Like, I experienced it, the change and stuff, or even the cold too. I don't remember it being in the 30s when I was a child here in Southern California, or snow here in the Inland Empire, which recently happened last week. That never happened when I was growing up. But I do understand sometimes the Earth has off years, warmer years, and colder years. But I don't need science to know that climate change is a real thing.
Right, but I think people really need to understand that it's more just the Earth getting hotter and we get hotter summers. It's also about water pollution. It's also about air pollution, like I said. It's about all these different things that have a direct effect on poverty-stricken communities more than anything. In San Bernardino, there's this ongoing battle between politicians in the area and these big logistics companies like Amazon, because they've situated their warehouses right next to lower income communities where they have to breathe in these diesel fuel emissions. And it's been an ongoing struggle that people are starting to wake up about. It's barely something that's coming to light, especially with all this pushback from the Republican Party or from anyone that is against climate change because they want to protect profits.
One of my best friends lives in San Bernardino, and I can tell you, yeah, the statistics, I mean, it still shocks me that SB is, the number 2 city in the country, the nation, with the highest rates of poverty. Of course, Detroit's number 1. And I don't know if it's like that still, but you can tell when you go down the 210 freeway and you go down Muscoy, dude, it's a different world compared to when you go up the freeway and, you go past Cal State San Bernardino. Totally different world.
Have you seen the documentary Dark Waters?
No, I've never heard of it, man.
I think that people really should watch that movie to understand how fucked up the climate change situation can get, or pollution can get. It's about this attorney who is defending this big company who, I don't know what they produce, but whatever it is, they have these factories that produce a lot of waste that goes into these rivers that run all the way into the communities of low income neighborhoods. And this battle started, I think, in the 80s. So the attorney that defends the company ended up switching over to the side of a farmer who was losing livestock because they were eating and drinking out of the river and all the food that the river provides for that farm. And later he started finding out through more investigation that it wasn't just the livestock of this farmer. It was also everybody who lived near that person, everyone who lived in that community. They were being born with defects. They were drinking the water and having oral issues with their teeth, things like that, getting cancer. And this trial went on for many years. And then they did some research on the community members, and they found that the majority of the males living in that area were suffering or were going to be suffering from testicular cancer and things like that. And that was like really alarming because the battle is still continuing. And I know that growing up in LA, we got a lot of notifications from our local leaders telling us, hey, there's lead in the water here. But I didn't really consider, how negatively that would impact me or anyone that I knew. But now it's starting to come more clear that we haven't really been protected from all these pollutants that just kind of find their way into our bodies. And that's what's crazy about this whole thing, is that it's a relatively new discovery and it's almost never talked about. But that documentary does such a good job in trying to really illustrate this issue. So, I mean, what Biden is doing currently, I mean, I think that it's a positive move in the right direction. I know he wants to move to cleaner resources, cleaner fuels like electric, things like that, solar, wind. But the only problem is that solar, wind, electric, they just don't have, they're just not as well established. They're not as sustainable as oil, unfortunately. So we can't just automatically cut that all off. And then we also have to consider that those states are going to suffer economically. I know that Texas already doesn't really, the people that are from there, their culture doesn't really identify with the rest of the United States. And I know they want to become independent. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe Texas can become independent one day because of this kind of shit.
That's exactly why, for me, education is, for me, it's like the most important thing. If only, our education levels were as high as, Scandinavian countries and other parts of the world, I think we would be able to find solutions to improve our country and perhaps, the rest of the world. But I do worry about natural resources because it's finite. It's going to run out someday. And that's most likely going to cause wars between nations and stuff. But I don't think we'll get to see that in our lifetime. But I do know, automation's becoming a big thing now. Elon Musk, now top 3 richest, wealthiest man in the world, or Jeff Bezos, Amazon, what they're trying to do in like the markets they're trying to take over. Automation is gonna put a lot of people out of work. Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the next 10 years we're gonna see a Walmart, but it's gonna be Amazon, and the workers are gonna be all robots.
That's gonna be fucking crazy, dude. What's gonna happen to the people that work at these places then?
Yeah, I have no idea. And I only know because, one of my buddies is a neuroscience major from UC San Diego. And I never, ever heard about automation until he told me 2 years ago. And he's like, yeah, dude, they already got, big rig trucks that drove by itself with just AI from New York all the way to California with no driver. And I'm like, what the heck? Or he's sending me videos of, like actual robots. Like it looks like Terminator and stuff. And I look at it like, is that real? Is that fake? But it's just incredible how fast technology is improving. And I don't know why this isn't, getting much coverage on the internet and stuff. But this is exactly why, if I do become a teacher someday, I'm going to try to fight with the district and try to introduce more topics to high school students because they just don't address it. I think public speaking is a big one. I think that should really be because it was never ever introduced at my high school. I didn't even know what public speaking was until I got to college, and I don't know
It's
why.
the current
No, I
problem
get it.
with schools is like the way we're educating our students is very it's structured in a way that's not the right way that people want to learn or that people learn. You know, the way they structure it is you have to learn this amount of knowledge in this amount of time, and then after that we're going to move on to this amount of knowledge or this kind of knowledge in a certain amount of time. Like you have this much time to learn this math course, and then we're going to move on to a different course and then a different course, and then we're going to get the year done that way. You know, and you don't really give students the option to want to learn. I know these all these things are like general ed kind of stuff, but I think that the way it's structured, there's kind of like this dilemma between how we structure our education and also how students or how people learn in general. Because the way people actually learn is they actually want to have to go out there and want to learn something. You know what I'm saying? And even in
Of
colleges,
course,
like
yeah.
in college, it's like I know that I've had almost all my friends have always complained about taking a class or taking a midterm for a class or a final or a simple homework assignment. And I think that if you're at the university level, you should be very invested and interested in what you're learning. That's the only way you're going to get things done effectively is to actually want to learn and absorb the knowledge that's coming your way.
Right, and I know, like in some Western European countries, like the UK, England, like they prepare their kids since age 12 to enroll in a course. So, like, if they're just gonna become a scientist, they're already focused on that since age 12. Or if they're just gonna be a lawyer, a doctor, it's a different country. I know very little, but I do know that's how they structure their education over there. Whereas here, yeah, I know they introduce you everything, and then you have to decide, okay, I like this, I'm probably going to stick with it. But yeah, I mean, this is why I've always advocated, to my friends and high school students, like by the time you enter a university or college, you should already know what your passions is. And I know that's difficult because I know I was fortunate. I knew since I was age 14, like what I wanted to do, what I wanted to study. But there's a lot of, students out there that they just don't know. Maybe they lack passions or very difficult.
Do you think that people are going to become or find themselves unemployed, especially people that are in the less educated demographic of people? Like because of this automation, this increase in robotics and things like that being used by bigger companies like Walmart and Amazon. Do you think that people are going to find themselves unemployed?
I think it's a huge possibility, but I also think they'll just develop a new skill. But yeah,
Probably,
I don't
right?
know. I haven't thought about it that much into the future. But as humans, we tend to adapt and learn new things. And this pandemic, great example of what humanity can do. So I don't know. I'm not really worried about that, but who knows? We'll see in our lifetimes for sure.
I mean, you're definitely spot on. That's a good example. Anyways, I kind of wanted to get over to this topic that's been happening recently with the GameStop stock. Do you know what's going on with that whole stock?
A little bit, and I kind of feel guilty because my inner circle, they all stock trade and stuff, but I introduced this to them, and now
Oh,
they all went on the Reddit subreddit, Wall Street Bet and
oh,
stuff. And
really?
right, yeah, but I told them, like, I know you guys have been doing this since March 2020, but you know it's always a risk, so just be careful. Just because these Reddit nerds actually got a victory against professional stock traders in Wall Street doesn't mean that it's going to happen again and again. So I don't know what exactly they're doing, but
Well, for anybody
that's on
that's
them.
listening right now, I kind of just want to address what's going on before we keep going on with this topic. So, there's current controversy over the GameStop stock as major broker dealers like Robinhood created limits on stock trading capabilities. This came about as Reddit users sought to manually inflate the demand for GameStop stock by buying stock shares of the company. This left short selling investors in a position to potentially lose billions of dollars. In summary, broke dealers are protecting short seller traders from losing money through this borrow then sell strategy. And there's a lot of negative backlash with this short selling strategy, which is when you borrow a stock from a company that's going downhill and then you sell it to people and then buy it back when it's at a much lower price, and you get the money that was inside of that gap from when you first borrowed it, sold it, and then when you bought it back when it was already at a cheaper price. And people make a lot of money from doing this, especially people that invest millions of dollars into these kinds of strategies. So right now there's all this controversy going on with apps like Robinhood for protecting these short sellers. So I just wanted to bring it to the table because it's what's currently happening right now. And I'm not sure how much you know about stocks or anything like that, but if you could give some insight, I mean, that'd be cool.
You explain it perfectly. I know very little about stock trading because, I've always told my friends, yeah, it's a good skill to learn, but it's not gonna, it's not going to be a stable income, because to make a lot of money, you have to invest a lot of money. If you look at,
I mean, I tried it. I have the Robinhood app myself, and I bought like a couple things here and there, but I don't know personally. I don't know how to manipulate the stock market in my favor, so I'm kind of just playing with it. So
yeah, I mean,
with that shit.
Yeah, like, some of my friends, yeah, they've made profits like in, $5,000, $10,000 profit. But it just depends on what your goal is. Like, do you want to, sell, short sell? Are you going to do it for the short term? Maybe you want to keep stock for 10, 20 years and maybe cash out at the end. So it just depends. But yeah, that's another thing too. I believe they should teach in the, K through 12, public sector and stuff. But personally, me doing it at the moment, I don't know, because it just seems like the system is gonna most likely work against you. There's always a risk. Sure, anyone can make a profit, 5, 10, $100 here and there, but I don't know. I just worry about all these people. There's 3 million people on this subreddit. They're all like, no, yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's cool, to see that the little man actually got a victory, but now, these professional stock traders, they got angry, and now there's a class action lawsuit, and I think it's been taken up to the Congress. So I have no idea what's going to happen. But it's ironic, only when these people that are already wealthy, yeah, they lost money, but do you really think it's going to affect them? No. And now they're angry, so they put a stop on. They're monitoring GameStop. I believe the news came out today. I don't know, man. It is what it is, but it is interesting to see.
It's crazy to see how these companies like Robinhood are protecting these investors' money, because we always tend to think about the free market as free, right? It's in the fucking name. But then all of a sudden, when you have broker dealers like Robinhood, putting a cap on the amount of stocks you can buy to protect the investors' money, it's kind of crazy, because now the free market is all of a sudden not a free market. It's manipulated. And that just goes against every basic understanding we have of our economy and what we believe in as a nation.
Yeah, and that's why, some of my friends, they made fun of what's going on by saying, laissez-faire free market, but these people on Wall Street, they're asking daddy government for help just because they lost, money. Yeah, it's a bunch of hypocrisy, and yeah, I don't know, man, what's going to happen. But it seems like since the pandemic began, there's always something happening every month.
Yeah, right. Almost every week there's something going on. I mean, did you hear about like the new Biden COVID relief plan?
Yeah, 1.9 trillion, right? Correct.
Yeah, something like that. It's the thing is that it's bundled with other policies that's going to get snuck in, right?
Right. Yeah,
and
like
so,
the UFO thing.
Yeah. If you know anything about that, maybe you could explain it.
Well, I believe, I guess, if it gets signed, we'll have 6 months before, I guess, the United States government will have to release all information they have about UFOs to the public. And personally, because I've always been attracted to conspiracy theories and stuff, I'm very excited about that. But I don't think it'll happen. I don't think we're ready to like know about the truth and stuff. How do you feel about that, man?
I think that I think that we should, and I think that it doesn't matter whether we're ready or not. Because say we do release a whole bunch of shit on UFOs, and we confirm that we have one alien in the United States, and we track them down, and we got
Right.
a warehouse or something, and we're currently investigating them. Say we know all that. I mean, what's going to happen? You're still going to go to work tomorrow, or you're still going to look for a job tomorrow. You're still going to be doing whatever it is that you're going to be doing tomorrow, and then just kind of have this on the side. I mean, it's got to a point where I think 2020 was so crazy that when the news first came out that the Pentagon released a video of a legit UFO, no one gave a fuck. That legit happened. The Pentagon released an actual footage of an unidentified flying object. That's literally what they called it. The Pentagon called it that same thing, and no one gave a fuck. And I feel like it's going to be the same sentiment when these files do get released to the public. I mean, what can the public do anyway?
That's so true, and I totally remember. Yeah, when that happened in May, and you're right. Yeah, I mean, so many things have happened in 11 months. Yeah,
I
people
mean,
probably won't freak out
I
about it.
talked to people when I brought that subject, to other people. They said, I still don't believe in shit.
What?
Like, really? I'm like, yeah. They're
Man,
like, yeah, I still don't believe it. I mean, it's all bullshit.
I don't know. You can be. I mean, there's no way we're alone, man. The universe is just too big.
It's
I would
big,
throw
but
that statement to these people, like, dude, there's no way.
here's the thing about the universe, though. It's so big that there's no possible way that you can travel from one star to the next without bending the laws of physics, meaning actually bending space to get from one star to the next. There's no way. Even if you travel at the speed of light, there's not going to be enough resources in that ship or whatever to get you from here to there safely and soundly. It'd take generations.
We're not
And
capable of that yet.
no way. No way. And so to say that some other civilization figured that out is kind of a reach, because it's very, very complicated to even wrap your head around how you would go about doing this, right? And then you also have to consider the fact that if there were aliens out there, in the entire span of history, why hasn't there been a recorded date or recorded moment where aliens have traveled to this planet? I know we're talking to all this alien shit right now, and it's sounds kind of stupid, but I mean, it's a legit conversation that I think we're going to be having soon.
I'm only concerned because if they do exist and they have visited us, that means they have the capability to, you know, travel like warp speed, like, Star Trek and stuff. And maybe that gives us a chance to maybe perhaps reverse engineer and probably develop the kind of technology that they do. But personally, things like, the pyramids of Giza and stuff, I really think aliens have always visited us, but our ancestors, they didn't know how to describe it in hieroglyphics, so they named them gods and goddesses and gave them weird heads and stuff. But I do think we're, they look at us like monkeys, maybe, I don't know, they visit us when they're bored and stuff.
Where there's a
But we
lot
can
of
get
ways.
back to the COVID bill if you want.
No. Like,
All right.
I mean, this all has to deal with COVID, as a matter of fact, because, like I said, it's this bill that they signed is in the COVID relief package, which I feel like not a lot of people realize.
No,
That
I just got snuck in there. Yeah.
if it does come to pass, and there is this COVID relief package passed by Biden, then the government would have effectively 6 months to release all this information about aliens or UFOs, any of that stuff, which I think it's pretty cool.
I don't know if many people out there are just thinking about, it's safe to assume most people think that, yeah, we've suffered the last 11 months. But honestly, I believe this is nothing. I think another Great Depression is coming. We're in so much debt. Man, who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years, I try not to think about it, but, all this free money, stimulus money we've received, like, are they going to tax us back, or are we going to have to pay it back? Like, who knows? These are all question marks.
I don't know, because I mean, you think about debt. Debt is just a number that's kind of just floating around. I mean, if you think about the number, that the United States is in debt with other countries, it's like in the trillions.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
China is like in the trillions, and that's not stopping people from living their day-to-day life. I feel like it's going to get treated almost the same way. But I mean, that's just a speculation I have. I mean, I couldn't look that far into the future. You know, I mean, I wish I could know what's going to happen in the next year, in the next 2 years. But for now, what I'm just going to do is just live life day by day. That's something that's a perspective that's been relatively new to myself because, you know, sometimes we get so stuck on focusing what's coming tomorrow or what's coming next year. Or like we said, when this whole pandemic thing is over, are we going to get taxed or whatever? But we have to also realize that all those things aren't real. You know, it's in the future, and the future isn't actually a palpable thing. It's not reality. The only reality that exists is the reality that's happening right now. And even the conversation we had at the beginning of this podcast is already gone. That's not reality at this moment anymore. This moment is this moment, and you have to live life in that way. I think personally, I think that you should be living in the moment, because what could happen is, and I've seen it, you know, people can die. You know, you can be waiting until what's going to come tomorrow or what bill you're going to pay at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, whatever. But you could also get into a car crash tomorrow and none of that shit would matter. So why did you stress out about all those things? You know, it's kind of crazy to see how many people, how many friends I've lost in the last year that didn't come from COVID. You know, even though in all of our psyches, it's been ingrained in us that COVID is the worst case scenario, you know? And so what's the use of stressing over COVID if we're going to die of different causes? We don't know if it's a car crash. We don't know if it's, you know, we fall off, I don't know, a cliff and we die or some shit. You know, people can die in all sorts of ways. And so I think that we should just be living moment in the now and what's happening right now. So I don't think it serves us well to be focused too much on what's happening next year or in the coming months or anything like that.
Man, I'm so glad you said that because honestly, you're not the only one that feels that way too. I think exactly like you when it comes to everything you said. You know, even before the pandemic, I always gave the same advice to people. You know, the past is in the past. Just focus on the present. There's no point in worrying about tomorrow because it's not here yet. You know, and we're mortal. We all know we're gonna have the same fate. So you might as well try to do everything you can in this one life that you're given, because in my opinion, you know, life is a gift no matter what kind of hardships and struggles and, you know, personal suffering we may experience. But I always try to just encourage people like, you know, I believe we're all here on this planet to help each other out. And I know it's very difficult to sometimes grasp because, you know, Americans, you know, we're Americans, capitalism, altruism doesn't really exist. You know, you're not going to give up your home most likely to like a homeless person. You know, we're all, you know, trying to be better versions of ourselves. But
and I said it in the last, I've been saying it in the last year now, even to people that are so worried about the future is I think I've been saying that I feel like a lot of people have, I think most people at this point have suffered from some kind of a loss. You know, they know people or they know people who died from COVID or other causes, but mostly COVID in the last year. And it's really put us in touch with death and mortality. And I think what we all learned is that we can easily leave this earth at any given moment. You know, that reality of death and mortality has really been ingrained into all of us. And I think that what we should learn from that is, like I've been saying, to just live the life that we want to live day by day. I think it was Steve Jobs who said that you should live your life as if you were going to die today. And if you were going to die in the same position that you're in right now, would you want to die in that position? You know, would you want to be stuck at your desk or stuck at work and die then unhappy if you're unhappy at work? Or would you rather be living it up, you know? Because that could happen. I mean, you could be at work one day, you come back home, or you're on your way back home, and there's a drunk driver, and you get into a car accident, and you could just die that way. I mean, that's happened to people. It's definitely happened to people where they're just driving home from work one day, and boom, they're gone. You know, I mean, I see car crashes every day when I'm driving on the freeway, and back then I'd just drive by, I wouldn't think too much about it, but now I really have to put myself into the perspective of that person. Like that person could have been me, or that person could have been my brother, or that could have been my sister, or what have you. You know, and they could have just easily been wiped from the earth just like that too. You know, and that's why I think people should be really in the moment. I've only known a couple people in my life that really just live in the moment, and one of those people has just recently passed away. And the one thing that makes me super, super happy about that person and the life they lived is the way they lived it. And that being that they live in the moment. And I know that no moment was taken away from that person in their lifetime because they lived day by day and not worried about the future.
First of all, I want to say, I'm sorry to hear about your loss. And secondly, that just reminds me of what, football legend Diego Armando Maradona said. One of his most famous quotes is, he always told people, it doesn't matter what I did with my life. What matters is what we did with our lives. And ever since I heard that, man, it just stuck with me. And that is why, no matter what's going on in our country politically, or if I see people arguing and stuff, I always try to reach out to people and just tell them like, why are you dwelling in this negative energy or negative emotions? It's honestly a waste of time. Like, we should all be here to help each other out and just have a good time in life, But I get it, that's just me. There's billions of people in the world. Everyone has their own perspective and their own path. And, we shouldn't try to tell each other how to live our own lives. But it doesn't hurt to hear advice sometimes.
Yeah, I think a fresh perspective on living life is really important. Like, I know everyone should have responsibility. They should have some kind of a routine to get their life in order. They should have a job, or they should have some kind of an education, or they should do certain things. They should live by certain principles to be successful. But those things should also be tackled on the daily level. Like, I have to go to school today, that's just what I have to do. Or I have to go to work today, that's just what I have to do. But they shouldn't be so preoccupied with their imminent future, because it's most likely going to be fucked up anyway. People are not designed to live happy lives every single day.
Yeah, life is suffering. I don't care who you are. Everyone is going through something, even if they're wealthy or if they're poor, middle class, everyone is going through something.
You know what's the most interesting thing to me about living a life, or living different versions of life? Because, everyone lives a different version of life. There's people that have it easier, people that have it harder. But no matter what, everyone's going through a struggle. And then I've worked with people who are going through the worst struggle. I mean, I've worked in warehouses with people that are making $12.50 an hour, and they have kids, and they're poverty stricken. And the thing that struck me the most about those types of people is that they're the happiest type of people that I know. They're the happiest, and they have a good sense of humor, and they're the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. And it's kind of ironic how the people who have it the worst generally approach life in the best way you can approach it. And I kind of just took that with me, and I'm carrying it with me wherever I go, even if it's going to be at the lowest or the highest level.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because honestly, that's how my parents are. I think just the fact that they came from a different country where it's, much, I laugh when Californians think, this whole COVID thing, it's, socialist state or communism. Bro, they have no idea what that is, In other countries around the world, leaders actually use the military rifles on people so they could listen to, COVID-19 protocols and stuff. But it's true. I always try to share this message to people anywhere, when you remind yourself and when you, immerse yourself in gratitude, it really changes your perspective. Yeah, you're going through stuff and you're suffering, but when you remind yourself that I have a place to sleep, I have food, I have friends, I can watch TV, for me, it's always helped. It's always reassured me. But yeah,
anytime I'm talking to anybody, a friend, anything, and they're complaining about, whatever it is that they have to complain about, I always have to stop them and tell them, hey, but you have a place to go sleep tonight, right? Or you have something to eat after this, right? Or you have someone to talk to about what you're going through, right? Well, there's people out there who literally don't have any of those things, and they're still going through life. You always just have to look at all the good things that are already there and just take that with gratitude, because you can easily lose all those things and people have lost them. You know, there's homeless people who don't have a place to sleep, or don't know where the next meal is going to come, or maybe they don't even have friends. They're just kind of out there and they're lonely, and it's raining currently, and you don't even stop. You don't even want to think about what they're going through right now. You know, and that's tough, because that's a large problem with what's going on with the homelessness crisis all across the nation. You know, I know that we talk about it in Riverside, or we talk about the homelessness crisis in San Bernardino, but in cities like LA, it's definitely just a reality that everyone here has to live with. I mean, the homelessness crisis is only getting worse, and the only thing that people living in these communities in LA or anywhere else can do about it is to just dehumanize these people, or just look away from the whole situation, because we don't want to come to reality with what other people are living or going through. And that's kind of fucked up, because if you can't even, or don't even want to acknowledge the issue by looking at it straight in the face, when are you going to ever be able to find the solution for it? You feel me?
No, yeah, and that's why, I'm only one person, but I'm the type of person that, I like to believe I'll be more successful in the future, but I will never ever forget where I came from and my roots. And honestly, I can't wait to give back to the community and to this country and to the world, because I know I've had blessings in my life and it's given me so many opportunities. But yeah, if I was in a position of power, you know, I'm pretty sure there's enough funding to, come up with
Well,
a
that's the
plan
thing,
to
though. Like,
reintegrate the homeless back into society.
it's kind of tough, because we always we always think about the homelessness crisis as something that is the responsibility of people in local government and things like that. But I think that people also should look introvertly and think about what they can do. You know, as people within a community that have to share a sidewalk with a homeless person or a homeless community. You know, what can you do for them? You know, what are we doing? Are we bringing enough awareness to the crisis itself? Like, why isn't this something that's not going around social media, you know, and bringing awareness to it? There should be more activism at the community level before it could even get to the local politics, or the state politics, or even the national politics. But I mean,
Right. Yeah.
that topic itself is just, it's so confounding. It's so difficult to pinpoint where the solution is, and almost no one can give you a concrete answer as to how you can fix that issue. All we know is that it's getting worse, and it's getting increasingly worse. And I feel like as it's getting worse, people are turning more and more away from it. People don't want to look at it. People don't want to acknowledge that this issue, because they don't want to put themselves in a situation where they have to empathize with that current situation another person's living in. That's fucked up.
It's strange, I guess it's safe to say that most people in this state, they're not born into homelessness. Like, we were all given a shot at achieving some kind of success. But personally, I believe that because I still believe in the American dream, and, rags to riches stories. But yeah, I can't wait to, try to inspire the future generation and give them the tools to just pursue the things that make them happy.
What's tough
And
because
hopefully they don't descend into becoming homeless.
It's tough because there's so many different reasons why people are homeless. It's not just, some people didn't want to try or whatever. It's also, there's the drug crisis that's been happening for quite some time now, and then this pandemic. People have been. I mean, I know that there's people who are behind right now, really behind, and some people have gone homeless because of it. So there's many different reasons why you'll find a person on the streets today. It's not just, oh, they didn't want to try or whatever. There's a lot of issues that go into homelessness, and the root causes of them. And I think the only thing we can do as community members of any sort of community is just be aware of it, and not be afraid to look at this situation in the face, and confront it and come to terms with it. Because, like I said, I think the reason why people don't want to look at it is because they don't want to live in that reality in the short moment that they have to empathize with that person living on the street in the rain. It's tough.
Right. For some reason, I do think this whole pandemic came on this planet to teach us a lesson, to teach humanity a lesson. I think it really forced us to take a step back, you know, immerse ourselves in empathy and really just take a look at our lives and the lives of everyone and just, just really just put it out there on the table. But yeah, there's so many issues facing humanity. And yeah, one can only wonder how, millennials and our generation's going to be able to tackle them.
Yeah, Jonah. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap this up because it's been over an hour
Right.
already. I don't want to take too much
Yeah.
of your time up. And I mean, if you have anything you want to say, anything you want to promote, I mean, that's cool.
No, I already left. The main message I wanted to promote was, my whole thing about gratitude and just,
God
being
bless.
better versions of ourselves.
Well, without further ado, the Nest listeners, I hope you guys subscribe, give this a like, and share with your friends. Like I said, this is going to be up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean.com, YouTube, and who knows where else. But follow me on social media, the Nest Pod on Instagram. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Keep an eye out for the merch. It's going to be coming soon. And thanks for listening.